Creepypasta presents The Stars. When I was a kid, there was my friend who we'll call Gary. He was a bit socially awkward like most of us kids, but nevertheless, his grades were great. He was the only one who always finished up the tests right after the teacher would hand them. He was the one to always be around the corner at parties. He was the one who you can easily find in much more quiet places, that is of course, if you knew him well enough to continue onwards. We were very good friends back in school, but his favorite subject was time and space, and boy, he loved it. Every time we would talk about anything, our conversation would suddenly change to that subject. I didn't mind because I was also fascinated by the topic. A few years later, we both finished and graduated from high school, when all of a sudden he invites me to his house to look at something he's been working on. As I get myself ready to leave my house, I make my way over, and there he was, greeting me from the garden of his house. I approached and do the secret handshake with him, just as we did back in school for all those years. We hugged, and he led me to his home, and once inside, I was impressed, to say at least. He's actually done it. He completed his project he's been working on, as he told me. It was fairly large colored haze in the actual shape of a star. I was thinking to myself, could a person on his home actually make a flying machine? Well, ever since I known this guy, he was pretty smart, but never thought to this extent. This machine looks epic, I commented. As I saw a smile on his face, he proceeded to give me a tour of what's inside. There were all sorts of buttons. I thought to myself, you got to be a mad scientist to understand and know by heart what each button does, he said. Are you ready, my friend? As we're about to take off beyond the sky, as a kid, always thought that the sky isn't the limit, that there must be a beyond. The machine slowly started powering up, as we held on tight to whatever we could reach, and soon enough we were flying. I was amazed of how lightly I felt. I bet he also was. We saw the sky around us as we flew, and man, was the view breathtaking. A once-in-a-lifetime experience. I thought to myself, we continued flying and flying until we stopped, just like that, in the thin air, as though we are now floating. He spoke, Daniel, there's something I haven't told you. I want to stay up here while I teleport you back to your house. A sudden look of confusion spread upon my face. What do you mean? I asked. Look, there's not enough time to explain. I know I need to stay up here. This is my home now. This is where I belong, he replied. I'm going to teleport you back to your house, and I'm going to stay here. I was shocked, didn't know how to react. I simply nodded my head in agreement. Will I ever see you again? I asked. You will always see me when looking at the bright blue sky, he replied. We hugged for the last time, as tears dropped down my eyes in disbelief of what is happening. He pointed a remote control towards me and pressed a single button. And before I knew it, I was actually back at my house, bursting into tears. I ran to my bed and just laying there, couldn't understand what just happened. I shrugged it off as a bad nightmare and drifted off to sleep. The next morning I woke up and decided to give Gary a call, but something was telling me what happened last night was real. I pushed the call button and met with Gary's voicemail. Sure enough, I thought he was still asleep because he likes to wake up late. So I did some stuff to occupy my time around noon. When I tried the second call, once again met with his voicemail. Odd, I thought. Still can't accept what happened last night was real. I went over to his house, and to my surprise, there were some old couples living there. And from what I know, Gary lost his grandparents long before. I came over and gently asked the old couple, excuse me, hi, do you know of a guy named Gary perhaps? They looked at each other with confusion and nodded their heads when saying, no, sorry. Well, I thought to myself, I have two options to accept. One, I'm mentally ill and made an imaginary friend named Gary. Or two, what happened last night was in fact real. As much as terrifying as it sounds, I had to accept either one.